Hello, brothers and sisters in YouTube family. Hope you guys are being blessed. There's so much turmoil in our nation right now, and many of us continue to carry such heavy crosses from the Lord. I know I've been going through my own trials, many of our intercessors, and even those here in the community. Trials that are pressing and testing our faith, as they have been met with contradictions concerning promises the Lord gave them, really hard struggles, miscarriages, and even death of loved ones amidst fervent prayers. I began to take notice when I received an email thread with someone sharing their situation and the comments that they received from others. Although they were encouraging, I began to wonder if the counsel they were being given was the Lord's will. If you don't seek the Lord's will in each situation, you can cause others or even yourself to lose hope when the outcome of your situation doesn't turn out as you prayed for. Remember in Scripture, James 4:3 says, "Ye ask and receive not, because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lust." That is the King James Version, which I like, and to paraphrase, he's saying you don't receive what you ask for because you're praying wrong or out of order, simply out of God's will. You're praying according to your flesh and not the Spirit. I see that because it's so important, guys, to seek and to live for God's holy will alone. That is something we weren't taught in the Protestant church. We presume so often that if someone was sick, the Lord wanted to heal them. If they were oppressed, it was because of sin in their lives. If they were troubled or under attack, they need to be delivered or possessed. If marriages were troubled, it's because God didn't will them to be together. If you weren't healed, it's because you don't have enough faith. And if your life is strewn with trials and troubles, you're not blessed. That is wrong. And we have been taught error, which is leaving many of the Lord's brides in discouragement and despondency because you're all going through many heavy trials right now and may not understand what is going on. I come to encourage you that, have you ever thought what you're going through is the Lord's perfect will for you? He didn't call us to a happy life, one without trials and sorrows. He actually guaranteed it. John 16:33. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. The Lord is calling all His brides to a higher degree of holiness, which calls for a higher degree of sanctification, and that is done only through suffering. If there was a better way, Jesus would have shown us. However, He took up His cross unto death and caused us to do the same. One of our intercessors gave me permission to share this, but she's been going through such a heavy battle, where she's been trying to conceive for the longest. She finally found herself pregnant, but had complications as we prayed for the Lord's mercy and His will. She had a miscarriage. Then within a month, she was pregnant again. We were elated because she felt it was the Lord restoring her loss. However, she found out it was an embryonic pregnancy, and the doctors have found no fetus. She's been mocked and scorned due to her barrenness, as she grieves with tears at her constant trial. Another one of our intercessors wanted to send her a link of a testimony of a pastor who went through a similar situation with his wife's pregnancy, but stood in faith, and their child was born healthy. I then simply asked her, has she sought the Lord if this outcome was His will for our sister, before sending it out, and she hadn't. This is not at all to diminish her good intention of the video, and to discourage our sister from having faith in the Lord. But it's important we know His will, because what may be His will for one person in the same situation may not be His will for you in the same situation. We all have designer crosses uniquely fashioned for us alone. Saint Therese Little Flower died with tuberculosis at the age of 24 years old. Saint Rita endured a 15-year volatile marriage of abuse and infidelity just to bring her husband and two twin adolescent sons to salvation, which she obtained, but they died in the process. St. John Vianney was a priest attacked by demons physically, even unto blood, just for the conversion of a prominent prince in the area that came to Christ. St. Padre Pio was a priest attacked for 20 days by demons physically and endured patiently the will of God. St. Bridget of Sweden's life was called a failure. She was a noble woman who followed the Lord's direction for work He wanted her to do. However, everything she tried to do, the Lord allowed it to fail. Even when she died, nothing was established, so she was looked at as a failure, until after her death, when the Lord allowed all her plans to unfold. The same with Saint Faustina, the apostle of divine mercy. She died young with tuberculosis and didn't see any fruit of her work, which has now touched the whole world 100 years later. I can go on and on about the lives of the saints who lived their entire lives as a living sacrifice for the Lord. The Lord permitted trials in their lives to bring him glory. Many didn't understand at the time what he was doing, but later on, as they matured, they submitted themselves to the Lord's will, abandoning themselves complete to him to do whatever he pleased with them. I might have mentioned this in a previous message, but it bears repeating. There was a man who was born blind, and the disciples thought he or his parents sinned to cause such sickness upon this poor beggar. However, Jesus corrected them by saying, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." John 9:3. So you see, your trials, my dear ones, many times are works of God so that his glory may be displayed in you. Don't be so quick to cast out, deliver, relieve yourself or others from a difficult situation, or encourage others to do the same when you have not sought the Lord's will for them or for you. You can end up like Peter, who was rebuked by Jesus. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Far be it from you, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." But Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me, for you do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men." Matthew 16:22. You see, Peter didn't want the Lord to die on the cross and had no understanding that this was the Lord's will for his son. So many times you can be rebuking the very thing the Lord has willed in your life and the life of others. You can be resisting the Lord and become a stumbling block for yourself and others when you come in agreement with the enemy to toss your cross aside, which he knows is means to a greater glory. So it's so important, my dear ones, to seek the Lord and his holy will in every situation, so that you make decisions with the mind of Christ and not with the mind of men. I believe the Lord is calling all heart dwellers to be real saints in the world, those who are meek, hidden, and live for the glory of God alone and not men, those who persevere faithfully in the will of God and suffer with him. Always remember, if he has heavy crosses in store for you, it's because he has great plans for your sanctification. So in the morning, I came before the Lord with much of these thoughts bombarding me, of how many still don't quite understand being a living sacrifice and seeing God in everything. I too was never taught about being a victim soul. Jesus, do you have anything to add? Jesus began, "I've called all my brides to this high calling, and it obtains all the crowns of heaven. In your world, to be a victim is scary, someone taken advantage of, used and abused. But to be a victim of my love is to simply be a sufferer with me, and for the salvation of souls. The bride must resemble her bridegroom, for we are one and the same. And if I have to suffer, my beloved ones, to bring redemption to mankind, you must follow me in this way of the cross. Redemption was completed when I said to my Father, 'It is finished.' You stand redeemed, but salvation is quite different and calls for a soul to submit their will to mine, to believe, and live out their faith. That's why I said to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. It must be worked out." Philippians 2:12. In the work, much grace is needed, and suffering releases much grace upon souls who do just that, to work out their salvation. My beloved ones, did I not say that my Father desires you to be a living sacrifice, just as I was? Romans 12:1. Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. My only desire in food were to do the will of God. I want that to be your sustenance. That is why I had this little one teach on discernment, so many of you could have tools as to discern my known will and follow it faithfully. You have no excuse anymore, my beloved ones. That's why I say my church does not resemble that of the early church at all, and is so far from the heavenly things, because you've been taught according to men's wisdom and the flesh, that wants to be comfortable, preserved, and happy. I never said you would have happiness in this life, my dear ones, but I did desire that your joy would be complete in me. John 17. When you unite yourself to me fully and to the will of the Father, then you become one with me. I am your all in all, the source of your joy, treasure, and happiness on this earth. Am I not enough? Heart dwellers, You are the most unique bunch for my body, because you are the brides of my heart. All of you are called to be victims of my love. All of you have unique designer crosses, specifically fashioned for you. All of you have consented to this before the foundation of time, for such a privileged role to suffer alongside me and bring in the harvest that way. Many of you, your glory and power will not be revealed in this lifetime here on earth. I've called you to be hidden, meek, unknown, and many times rejected and scorned by other members of my body. So please stop listening to different denominations, ministers, or what you've been taught in the past. When you compare yourself to other believers, you'll indeed find yourself confounded with confusion and even become resentful because of the unique cross I've asked you to bear. You must trust in my goodness and my mercy, knowing that I waste nothing, and if I've asked much of you, it's because I know you'll give much. There's not one thing you sacrifice in this life that you'll not get back 100-fold, even 1,000, especially for those who have entrusted their lives to my mother. She makes your filthy rags into piles of righteousness. My dear ones, your ailments, your sicknesses, your estranged family members, the trials in your marriage, your confusion, your oppression, your contradictions, even attacks from hell are all used to fulfill my will and purpose in your lives. So please, my beloved little ones, trust me and no longer impede your journey with obstacles you place there when you go off in your own self-will and in self-love by praying amiss, wanting relief when I want you to endure, and seeking consolation outside of the cross. You'll then find your cross even heavier to bear when you resist the work I want to do in your soul. Come now with me, my beloved ones. I'm still on the cross, suffering gravely and thirsting for souls. Climb up, stay here with me, endure with me, persevere with me, so that you may share my glory. And that was the end of Jesus' message. So you see, to be a victim soul doesn't solely mean we suffer more than others, but we get to love Jesus for all the souls that don't love him as he should be loved. Because greater the suffering, the greater the intimacy, and out of intimacy our love grows. I would like to end with a response I gave my dear sister, who's dealing with these difficult pregnancies and miscarriages, that it may encourage someone else. As I began to encourage her to carry her cross, I felt the Lord begin to give me insight as to why he was allowing such a cross for her. I began to tell her, he needs everything. Every little drop of this cross is not in vain at all. Your promised child will come in the right time. See this cross as a mission for the unborn. Use this time however long he allows you to carry this child to pray the rosary for the unborn daily. Pray fervently for aborted fetuses. Oh dear one, your prayers are so powerful. Many, many, many children will be saved by you carrying this painful cross. So change your perspective and see this as a mission, not for the weak of heart. And he has entrusted it to you to save these babies, even if it means at the cost of your little one in your womb, laying down its life for souls. Remember, they too give their consent to God concerning their lives. So your little one consented to her life being given for others. And whether it's the will of the Father to take this one, recognize that the child in your womb has also given its consent, and you just yield to the will of the Father, and he'll take care of the rest. May he grant you peace that surpasses understanding in your trial, and it's okay to cry. Offer every tear for the many tears Jesus and Blessed Mother cries for these precious souls, and cling to what the Lord tells you. Abandon yourself and trust him through this. You are a missionary now, and you don't realize it. Your mission field and one of your callings is for the aborted babies. Many souls are being saved. We'll be praying for you. Stay encouraged. And she responded, thank you for the encouraging words. It's a painful experience and journey, but when done with a willing heart, it's no longer painful. My tears will wash their bodies, where they lie stained with blood, and quench the desire to be born alive and live their lives like any other children. What a beautiful response and submission to God's will in her trial. God bless you until the next message.